I think as well, one of the challenges that we've found is
to allow you to step fully into your provider role. Like I needed to surrender and, quote unquote, drop the sword and be like, Blake's got us.
which I haven't spoken to much, but pre-Frankie coming, it was tracking to be the quietest month that I've had in the last 5 years.
And it's been so beautiful to see you like just totally lean into fatherhood.
It was a beautiful Friday morning and Frankie and I got to go for a walk. What I talk about regularly, Life by Design, has given me this position that I'm in now where I get so much time with her.
Should we share the things that like really worked well for us in postpartum?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back-to-back episodes. I hope.
I love it. Let's do it.
I say I hope because we're pre-recording these and I'll put them out back-to-back when we actually air them to the world.
I love it.
That's the intention. So previous episode was all about the back end of pregnancy and also the birth story. A bit of emotion there. Who knows where this one will go?
A couple of eyelash pulls. If you know, you know.
And today we're talking parenting, and depending how we go for time, maybe some Q&A. I've got some questions here. If we don't get time for it, we'll do another Q&A. But let's start with parenting off the back of birth.
I love it. Can I say something? Let's just like say the elephant in the room. Why does no one teach anybody how to put a baby in the car?
Yeah.
That was the worst. Leaving hospital and then getting to the car and then looking at each other being like, how the fuck?
It was raining.
It was raining.
Yeah, fucking doozy.
How the frig do we put her in the car?
Yeah.
It was literally hilarious, wasn't it?
This doesn't get spoken of, but parents that are to come, it becomes a lifetime of firsts. And I think the more you can ground yourself in the lifetime of firsts, the better the overall experience is going to be. But yeah, we took her out of hospital, which even I remember us having a little selfie just out the side of the hospital. It's like, we've done it. It's kind of like you've done it and now it starts all over again. You've done it in terms of the pregnancy and the birth, and now life really starts.
Yeah. It was a crazy drive home though. Like I remember you were driving, it was raining, you were driving so slow and Frankie held my hand the whole time. Like I had my finger and she had her tiny little hand wrapped around it. I was in the back seat with her and she did not let go and she did not cry the whole way home. Like I thought, oh my God, this could be anything here. But she was just like, just peacing with the world. She was awake. She was cruising, but.
I remember my brother asked me, he obviously was picking up what I was putting down. He's like, how was the drive home? And I was like, fucking slow. So I'm guessing every bloke has the same thing, where I was probably doing 60 and 110 for a couple of reasons. It was fucking pissing down, but also I've got this new little child in the back who I was just freaking out, and I was just like so cautious. I've never driven I felt like I was on my L's again. So if you're becoming a parent at some stage, look out for that one.
Yeah. And then we got home and we were like, what do we do? Like it's the weirdest feeling being in an environment that is so familiar that automatically becomes not familiar because you're like, well, we have this little human here. And so our intention at the start of postpartum was that we were going to do 5 days in the bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed or something like that. And this is kind of from...
This is for Shani, not for me.
Yeah. Blake was like next day out there running. Yeah. But this is like really to rest the body. I'd had lots of stitches. I'd had the tear. I had the episiotomy. There was a lot of healing to happen. So I understood it from that lens, and I think we had 7 days where we were kind of like resting in bed, and then we got to the point where like, fuck, I'm going stir crazy here. We need to go down to the beach and watch the sunset or something. So we kind of loosened our grip a little bit on the 5. But one thing I'm so glad that we did was we had like no visitors for the first, was it 2 weeks or something?
Yep.
For a couple of perspectives. One, it meant we could just run our family on our own clock. We didn't have to worry about, someone's coming at this time, someone's coming at this time. We've got to clean the house. We've got to do that, whatever it is. it just allowed us to like drop into flow as a family. And two, it's so good for, you know, Frankie's nervous system. She's not being thrown around, you know, different people. She's just got a really stable core home environment that it's like, okay, we've got mum, dad. You know, my mum actually came for 4 days, which is actually really was amazing.
Was that in the first 2 weeks?
That was like, I think we got home and she came maybe like 3 days afterwards.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which was perfect because it's like we would go to the shops together. Like, you know, she helped me do a lot of the firsts for me, which helped me build a lot of confidence as well.
I think one of the best things that you can do if you have friends or family that have a newborn is check in, and I know everyone's doing their best and everyone's excited and everything else, but check in as to what they really need. It can be hard to understand if you don't have kids. It can be hard to empathise with someone's personal experience. But, you know, it's all well and good for whether it's grandparents or uncles or aunties or friends to get excited, you know, with good reason. There's a newborn to want to come over. But to really, the best thing you can do is really honour the parent's experience, and that's on them as to what feels right for them. I think one of the things that, you know, has probably worked to our advantage is that we do live away from family, so there wasn't a massive rush, which gave us a chance just to find our feet. And again, each to their own. Some people might want family there from day one. That wasn't what we wanted other than your mum. And we've been able to drip feed family, you know, your family over essentially a 3-month period where most of your closest family have now experienced some time with Frankie. And, you know, we're obviously at time of recording, we're going down to Melbourne next month and there'll be a whole bunch of new introductions there. But I really appreciated the people that honoured our boundaries and didn't push them and were just thoughtful in that process. So if you haven't had kids, it's hard for you to know what that is, but just be intentional in understanding how you can best support them, you know, your friends who are new parents. And the best way in which you might be able to support them is just to give them space as well. So yeah, just a heads up, because no one told us how to best support other newly born parents.
That newly born parent. It actually is newly born parents.
Is that the right? That's
it's not the right language, but I love it.
But also, no one, like, you don't know what you don't know. I remember being the annoying person who messaged. We've got 2 friends, Josh and Elise, who were having their third kid
baby
at the time. And I did the most annoying thing, and then Josh got me back and did it to me a few times, which was to message them and ask me if they have had a kid yet. It's the worst message. And we got a few of them as well. We got stitched up. Yeah. So guys, this is just a basic education insight into, because you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So those are 2 things to be mindful of. Don't send people that are awaiting the birth, have you had a kid yet? And just give people a bit of space on the other side as well.
And I think like the messages like, hey, thinking of you, sending you love, like they're so beautiful, like amazing. But yeah, it's the ones that it's like any news. And you're like, God, I will let you know when I have had thy baby.
It's also quite, I don't know how you felt, but like, you know, one of the things that we spoke about in the last podcast was Anna really put it on me to be the gatekeeper of all things. So that is, any news is a super unnecessary and at times can be a little bit stressful message for the mother in particular to receive that kind of message. So if by whatever chance you felt the need to send a message, you'd probably send it to him, not her.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Should we share the things that like really worked well for us in postpartum? Because like we're 13 weeks now, and you know,
how long does postpartum go for?
Well, it's kind of like the 4th trimester, what they say.
So it's done. We've made it.
Well, we're through 12 weeks. Yeah.
So this episode's all about postpartum and our parenting experience.
So maybe we can talk through the things that really helped us, because like we had so much support from, you know, we don't have family in Byron, but we had so much support from our community. You know, we had our amazing friend Meg set up the meal train, and I reckon it was probably 5 weeks of not cooking a dinner. Do you reckon?
Yep. Shout out to Megs,
Megs,
for
yeah,
organising
Megs
that. It was
Pacific.
unbelievable.
And it was like every night we had someone, you know, drop a meal off, or they made a meal that would last over 3 nights so we could have it over 3 nights. And like that was like saving grace. Like it was amazing.
Also, like how good are our friends at cooking?
Oh, insane.
Because unless you go, like we go around to a lot of friends' houses for dinner and they come to ours, so you kind of get to experience people's cooking. But really, zoom outside of that and you often don't know how good someone a cook is.
Yeah, right.
And then we got these meals and I was like, fuck, I didn't realize she was a good cook. Like
I'm talking like Michelin star health food vibes, like slow cooked. I reckon we had slow cooked meat every night for 5 weeks. And then they were like coming with, oh, here's the slow cooked this with like all these accompaniments. And then there was like, you know, some raw balls here and there's a cake here. And like it was just insane, the nourishment that we received.
If you wanted to be someone's bestie, if you wanted the best present that you could give new parents, it would be to organise a meal train.
Yeah,
it's credit to Megs.
Yeah,
that was a great move by her. So that was a massive win, and I think we were told that it would be a win, but it I think Strong Mama might have even been like, yeah, meal trains are awesome. So that got taken care of, and that was massive.
Because we would get to like 6 p.m. and be like, oh my God, I can't think about dinner. And Frankie at the start, we would just contact napping always. So for you to just be like, don't have to think about dinner, it's defrosted, put it on the stove, we eat it, we're nourished, like was the best. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a big win. I think one of the things that's really stood out to me is obviously I wanted to share my perspective and our perspective of parenting through social media because that's part of my world. And naturally, you know, we said this in the last episode, naturally there's a lot of projections that come as a result of that. What you will do, what you won't do, etc. And again, as I said in the last episode, a lot of that hasn't rung true for us. But one of the things that you were really good at is, yes, you wanted to, you know, kind of us as a family nest for that kind of 2 weeks in particular. But beyond that, you really started to push yourself to get out. And that would look like going to different cafes in the morning. You know, you'd go to beaches. Most nights now go for a sunset at the beach or some kind of lookout. But I think what can happen is, you know, people talk about loss of freedom, and maybe we'll touch on, you know, the conversation that we had around how my life felt free and yours didn't. But it also, maybe there's a loss of freedoms for some people, but what I've come to realise, at least from our experience, is that some of it can become self-inflicted by, you know, having so much anxiety about leaving the house or having anxiety about doing all these things for the first time. And one of the things that, you know, was really impressive about you was of course it brings anxiety. You're doing shit for the first time, but you were still prepared to push yourself to your limit in those first few weeks of doing all the first for the first time to overcome that. Because essentially for a lot of parents, what I think probably happens is they, you know, there's these self-inflicted restrictions, but at the end of the day, at some stage, they've still got to face the music of putting the baby in the car for the first time, or going to a cafe for the first time, or going for a walk, date nights, all these. You still got to do it, and you're still going to have the angst that comes with it, but you've just delayed the inevitable. So I think one of the things that you did really well was you're like, fuck it, I'm getting out. Yes, I feel anxious. Yes, I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, I feel nervous. And here we are 13 weeks down the track, and, you know, all of the fundamentals that made up our relationship before are back. You know, and we've spoken in the last week or two about bringing more intentionality to them, but they're all back in their place, and we're back to kind of how things were pre-Frankie, just with Frankie now.
Yeah. And I think like what it felt like is each week you build a bit more capacity and you build a bit more confidence. And like at the start, first 2 weeks were pretty fucked. Like I had a lot of physical pain from the stitches. You know, I was breastfeeding, sitting upright. So there was a lot of pressure. Like I literally felt like my insides were like going to come out. And, you know, you're finding your feet with breastfeeding and like, you know, thankfully Frankie's been a really good sleeper and we've co-slept from the beginning. So it's like that wasn't too much of an issue, but I think it was just recovering from the physical pain. And then slowly you start to get a little bit better and things feel a little bit, you know, I think it was probably week 2 I really felt a shift physically. I was like, okay, I can be on my feet a bit longer. I can stand. I wasn't going for walks at that stage, but I can do a little bit more. And I remember I interviewed Jen Kennedy on my podcast, and she said the best thing she did for herself in postpartum was she would do a daily checklist of things for her and things for the baby. So that's what I started to do. From that stage, I made a little checklist and I would put it in the pantry. And I had like have a shower, do my skincare, get out and see the sunshine, eat a breakfast. You know, there was a few things for Frankie on there, but then say there was probably like 10 things, read, get back to messages. And every day I would just check them off until like some days it might have been 3, some days it might have been a bit more. But then once I started to hit the consistent, like, okay, I'm getting 10 out of 10, I knew then I could introduce something else in. And I think it's postpartum has been like that for me. Okay, what do I need to master this week? You know, how can I improve on last week? Do that until it becomes second nature. And then I stretch the bubble again and stretch the bubble again. But I do remember in the first, it probably was the second week, you know, you're laying in bed and like I'm seeing you go out for runs every day and you're catching up with friends and whatever. And I was like, fuck, like I feel really jealous. Like I don't expect you to change anything, but I feel jealous. I feel like my life has completely changed. Like I'm here, you know, pinned to my bed, contact naps for 20 hours of the day, whatever it is. And you get to go out and do all the things like life hasn't changed. And I'm so glad we had that conversation because I think that was, look, I could have chosen to keep that to myself and feel bitter and resentful, and then that would impact our relationship, you know, and however big that would get. But I just said to you, I was like, look, I don't expect you to change anything, but this is what's coming up for me. I feel really quite, I just want to voice that. And then I think after that, you're like, okay, well, what can we do to give you a bit more you time? And that's when we started to implement, like we had 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon. Now it's kind of stretched out to like quite a bit longer. But even just having those pockets of 30 minutes, I could have a shower, reset the house, have a breakfast, get back to some friends, call a friend, do whatever I wanted to do. And that just like really helped me with a bit of sanity. And look, like we're in a fortunate position. You work from home. You know, I get that as a privilege. Some people, their partner goes off for work at 6 a.m. They don't get back till 6 p.m. So like I understand we're in a privileged position, but like those little things, fuck, they made a world of difference. And like I think for us, like we've just brought in so many systems and so many processes. I know that sounds really rigid, but it's like it's allowed us to have so much more freedom. Like, you know, we've got your morning walk with Frankie, your afternoon walk with Frankie. Saturdays now I have 3 hours to myself where you and Franks hang, and then I'll go to a cafe or go to tea or something. And it's just like we've got so many little things that we've brought in that just help us like streamline so we don't have to think about it, you know? So I think, yeah, as you touched on before, getting out of the house early, I thought that was going to be a bad thing. I thought, you know, you're told to like sit in bed for 3 weeks and like don't get out. But really that was the thing that like helped my mental state, and I felt freaking amazing. I felt like, you know, by week 3, I was like, I feel so confident getting in the car with Frankie and going for a drive. And like I would literally say to myself, if I left the house, I'd be like, even if I just get to the coffee shop and I have to turn back, I'm proud of what I've done. Like that's amazing. And like other little hacks as well. Like I know this sounds strange, but getting up when you went for your walk, I would like put on a face of makeup. I'd do my hair. I'd get dressed for the day. Like I'm going to go out of the house. And that was like the biggest hack, because if Frankie's like quiet for a moment and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to pop her in the car. I'm going to go to the shops. I don't need to think about, fuck, I've got to get ready and then I've got to change here. I've got to do this. So I know it sounds like silly, but it made me feel better about myself because I feel and look great. And then it's like I can actually get out and do things, and it's just less barriers. Like you're just removing the barriers to things that, you know, are going to make you feel good. So I reckon for probably 2 weeks, it was like every day we'd go out, see a coffee shop, you know, go and see a friend. Yeah. And that really, really helped my mental state.
Well, I think that as an observer, there's been a number of things that have helped your mental state. And I don't know, would you ever say you've struggled I know you've had like anxiety and stuff, but would you ever say you've struggled with your mental state?
What, in life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's probably a number of factors as an observer. One that's pretty out there is the capsules that you've been taking as well.
They were great, weren't they?
Do you want to give the guys a little scoop on what they are?
Well, so I've always wanted to encapsulate the placenta and have that after birth. One, it's really good at like rebuilding all the lost nutrients, and then two, it's kind of like this beautiful connection. It's like as I'm taking, I'm like, this is the last little connection between Frankie and I. So I think I've got 3 or 4 left now, and I'm really savoring them. It's really good for healing after gestational diabetes, which I was surprised with, and also preeclampsia. It's really good. And also postnatal depletion or depression. It's really good for mitigating that. You still can get it, but it's the studies say that it's really good for helping mitigate those risks of getting it. So it was kind of a no-brainer. We worked with Tracy from Placenta Byron Bay, I think it is.
Yeah.
And she was amazing. She picks it up in this like container from the hospital after birth, takes it away, and then she brings it and drops it to your house like 2 or 3 days later. I started about 6 a day, and then you go down to like 4 a day, then you go down to 2 a day, and then now I'm just taking them intuitively when I sort of feel. But that I reckon, I've never given birth before, so I don't know anything different, but I have felt incredible after birth, and I was actually quite worried that I would get postpartum depression. I thought, oh God, like I just, those things that are like niggling in the back of your brain, and touch wood, we haven't had anything like that. And I felt really mentally strong. I felt I've had a lot from my cup that I can give to you, that I can give to Frankie, that I can keep for myself. So I think that was such a hack. And some people might be here for it, some people might not be, but I think it's really helped us.
It wigs some people out, the thought
Which
of
I get it.
encapsulating the placenta, especially if you've seen what a placenta looks like.
It's huge.
But it's just guys, just zoom out for a second. It's in capsules. You don't taste it. You don't just let go, especially if mental health's important to you.
Shout out to
I would say that, what's that?
No, I was going to say shout out to my bestie Dom, that I've sent her a photo of the placenta. She's like, what is that? And I was like, it's a placenta. She's like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, what? You're a woman. How do you not know that is?
God bless Dom. But I would say as an observer, you haven't really, and there's a number of factors obviously, but I haven't seen any signs of postnatal depression at all from you, touch wood.
Touching wood.
And I think, we'll never know otherwise in terms of the capsules, but that getting out of the house, I think you were probably going a little bit stir crazy at the end of kind of week 2.
I think so.
So for you to get out of the house and get around people, one thing that we have chosen, Shani's chosen, is it's very common obviously in those early stages for a lot of people to be part of a mother's club, which makes sense for support and, to kind of potentially cure any form of loneliness that might happen. And that hasn't really been your thing, but you've been really intentional with catching up with girlfriends, which I think, kind of obvious, but also not for some people. Like, we're human beings designed for human connection, and you've been really intentional. And I think, I don't want to speak to a mother's experience because that'd be ignorant, but I think that it would make sense for a lot of mothers to feel isolated and lonely if it's just them and the kid the whole time. And obviously we've got a, good dynamic where I work from home, which means, I haven't seen any kind of signs for you of loneliness. And obviously you have such a good time with Franks, we have a good time, and then you've got, so many good girlfriends. So I think that was a really good thing for you. The nature of our crew in Byron Bay is that a lot of people have flexibility. So catching up with them for morning tea or, anything like that has been pretty easy for you. So I think that's also, you got the capsules, that's played a big role.
Yeah.
And naturally, once you've started being able to walk as well, just get out in nature, I think those 3 really stand out to me as 3 of the fundamentals. On top of the fact that we've had a very good sleeper with Frankie, which, I think those 4 set a really good foundation for looking after your mental health.
And I think I'll speak to I know I'm hesitating because I've spoken to co-sleeping before and been shut down. So anyway, we will speak to our experience, but we've been safe co-sleeping since the beginning.
What's safe co-sleeping?
Safe co-sleeping is like she's not just like, like fully like under the covers with us and all that sort of stuff. Like she's in her sleep environment and she's like
just
there's obvious
stuff.
things. Yeah. So we've loved co-sleeping. Like it's just felt like such a natural thing. I remember
not the first night.
Wait, what do you mean the first night?
I was wigging the fuck out the first night because and everyone that we speak to that doesn't co-sleep has the same thought. They're like, are you worried about rolling onto your daughter? And I was like, yes. I felt like I was in a fucking straitjacket the first night. Did not move at all because I had fear of rolling onto her. But actually, it's worth just touch on that. So I know these are like logistics, but hopefully this is helpful to someone. I actually sleep with a separate doona to the girls. So
we've got a king bed, so
and
it's
we've
huge.
got a king bed, which gives us plenty of room. Just like little things that I think are helpful to
100%.
people when it comes to that. So those little pieces help with the co-sleeping. Another really random thing, but I might as well just speak to it.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest fears, and it's a random one, but prior to Frankie coming, because we don't sleep with our phones, albeit you do at the moment because of Frankie. We don't sleep with our phones in the room. We've got no kind of EMFs. So my phone would be in the main room, and naturally my alarm goes off early at 4 a.m. And I would always be trying to get to my phone as quick as possible so I didn't wake Shani up. And then I was up in the Gold Coast having breakfast with a few of the boys, and I was like, fuck, I'm trying to work out how to get access to an alarm that isn't going to wake Frankie and Shani up. And shout out to Matty Schmidt. He's like, dude, you Whoop. And I was like, what do you mean? And anyway, he informed me that my Whoop has an alarm on it that just vibrates on my wrist. And like something so simple, but a proper game changer. So I just give it a little double tap in the morning when the vibration goes off, and don't wake anyone up. Random, but also has been super helpful to me as well.
I want to come back to the co-sleeping stuff because at the start I'm like, how do people fucking do this? Like I'm like looking at all these like co-sleeping blogs and Instagram pages, and it was literally like probably I would say maybe 10 days of every night experimenting with something different just to see what was working, what was not. You know, and they say like, oh, you know, swaddle your baby and have them in those like live to dream little swaddles. We did it for 2 nights, and I was like, this feels so wrong.
Unnatural.
And I did this amazing course on Track Baby, which is an incredible course for teaching you what to do with your newborns and what not to do. And they say like, don't swaddle your newborn because you're actually like suppressing their startle reflex, and the startle reflex helps them build safety in the world, right? So by swaddling them in the little straitjacket, every time they go, oh, the little startles, that's actually them building their brain and their neurons like so fast. So you're actually slowing down the development of your baby by putting them in a little swaddle. And I know it can maybe make sense like, oh, it looks like they're in the womb and it's giving them that sense of safety. Intuitively, it didn't feel right, and then that backed it up for me. So we took Frank's out of her sleeps, and we bought so many of them. So we took them out. We took her out pretty early on, and then we were like, do we have her sleeping in her little nest? But that wasn't right. So now we've kind of got it down to a fine art where you've got your doona, I've got my doona. Frank's is in her sleeping environment, so she's in like her layers plus little sleep sack. And then I've got this like little night light thing that I have that when she wakes up, and honestly now Frankie probably wakes up maybe for 2 minutes at a time, and we side feed. So that's pretty much, if you don't know what it is, it's breastfeeding laying down on your side and your baby's lying almost next to you in like a little bit of a, like imagine I'm in a C shape and she's sort of nestled in there. So I just like hit that light, pop her on the boob when she wakes up, and then we're both back to sleep within a minute, you know? So I might be awake for in total, I don't know, from her maybe like 10 minutes in the night less. So that's been a game changer. Like, and I know people poo-poo co-sleeping and whatever. It works for us. I love it.
Very well for us. So we might just keep going with it if you guys don't mind.
If you guys are
you
right.
okay?
Yeah,
you okay if we keep going with what's working for us?
And like we're getting sleep, and like it's building such a beautiful, calm, grounded nervous system for her. Every time she wakes up, she's got either my hand or your hand on her tummy being like, hey, we're here. give her a snug, give her a boob if she needs it, and then she's back to sleep. So it works really well, and I think it's been a game changer for us not being sleep deprived in the very beginning.
Well, even that, we to go back to something you said much earlier, being in a fair bit of pain in the first couple of weeks, we were really intentional with you not picking her up at all, if you remember. And that would mean literally if Shani needed to move from one room to the other, I would be there to carry Frankie. And then as Shani built the strength, that kind of came back in. But, in the early stages, I think it was probably Frankie was doing pretty well between kind of 8 and 1. And then I think in the early it feels like a lifetime ago now, but I think in the early stages I was probably doing 2 wake-ups a night for nappy change. Do you reckon it's 2? Or has it always been 1?
Always been. And then now it's none.
You sure? I reckon it's like might have been a 1 o'clock and then sometimes there'd be a 3 o'clock.
Oh, maybe like a later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, just, nappy change. I don't know if other guys resonate with this, but pre-Frankie, the thought of nappy change, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, that sounds gross. And now it's literally where my daughter and I do our best bonding is the nappy change. And Shani has this little joke because I am very, protective over my time with Frankie. So we'll often pull up somewhere in the car and I'll be like, I'll get Frankie.
Frankie. It's like it's a competition.
Shani knows that I'm going to get Frankie, but just to really reinforce it, I'll get her out of the car.
And he jumps out of the car, sprints to the other side of the car. I've never seen him move so fast. Then also with the pooey nappies, you're like, I'll do it. I'm like, okay, cool.
So the nappies, in the early stages, carrying her from A to B and getting her out of the car, and then obviously I've got a couple of walks each day, is our time. And it's what I kind of get it from, what a lot of blokes said to me is it's quite hard to build a relationship in the first couple of months because, they're obviously kind of developing. And so many blokes have said to me it only gets better, which is fucking wild to think because I am loving parenting and I'm loving our journey so far, and to think it gets better than this is crazy. But obviously in these early stages, there's, she's developing kind of every week, and there's not a huge amount in that first 4 weeks in particular. But there's just the connection, and you don't need words, you don't need sounds, you don't need, which you don't get much of in the first 4 weeks. But the evolution of the connection from month 1 to month 2 and now to month 3 has been amazing. And, I think we were talking about this on our check-in recently. We had this goal probably 2 years ago, in terms of an intention to find new highs within our relationship and our lives, and also find a way to really embody the simple things of life, because we're surrounded by beauty each and every day, and there's so many little things that make up life that we didn't want to pass by. And I think that really landed for me with Frankie because there are new sounds every day. When I'm going for a walk, she'll just look at the certain trees and I'll stop with her and look, like things that you would take for granted that you walk past every single day, and then to think that you get to look at them through the lens of a newborn who's in this constant state of awe and wonder, and to be able to share that experience is even hard to find words for.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know why I'm emotional about it, but
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's I've started seeing more beauty in the simple things because I look at her and I look at the way that she looks at, like a tree or a bird or a duck. And again, she's still kind of developing, like how she'll look at nature and life in, 12 months' time or whatever will be completely different again. But, it's found a way to stop me in my tracks of realising what we've got around us and how beautiful it is, and, all these little things that we take for granted. And even I spoke about this recently, and I don't want to go too much into it because Shani and I have said that we won't say too much about it, but we were in a fortunate position to buy a property recently, and the next morning I went for a walk with Frankie like I do every morning, and for me that was just as exciting. Like society as a whole have these big milestone moments, buying houses or, having kids, all of these are those milestone moments. And, while it was exciting and everything that kind of comes with that, the next morning, it was a beautiful Friday morning and Frankie and I got to go for a walk, and I feel super privileged to be in that position, to be able to spend as much quality time with my daughter as I am and do, and so much of the last 5 years of building, what I talk about regularly, Life by Design, has given me this position that I'm in now where I get so much time with her and I get to witness you with her, and then we get to spend time as a family. So, I talk a lot about the importance of trying to build a life with flexibility and freedom. And it's been important to me for the last 4 years, but it's just obviously gone to a new level over the last 12 weeks with Frankie as well.
And it's been so beautiful to see you like just totally lean into fatherhood so much. It's like as soon as it hits like 3 o'clock, you're like laptop down, let's go Frankie, let's go for a walk. And then you get back and then we're going for a family adventure, going to watch sunset. And it's just so nice. Like I think in the past you would have just been like, oh, I'll just work a little bit more. But now it's like any moment that you work is time away from Frankie and our family. So you're like fully there. And just to touch on the nappy thing, like, a lot of babies might not love their nappy being changed, but I don't think Frankie has cried once because you've set, actually she did cry one time, but you've set up the nappy change station to be her favorite place in the house. And it's like every time she's there, she's smiling and she's so grounded and at peace. And it's such a testament to like your bonding time that you have with her every time you change a nappy. And it's like, it's so funny, just the simplest things that she's called us to appreciate. Like I love changing a nappy as well. And it's like, even if it's like getting a little clothes on or having a shower, it's like every moment feels so precious and so beautiful. And we're just like fully in it together and just so present. So it's like, they say it expands your heart to have a baby. It fucking explodes it every single day. And it's like, I don't think I could love you anymore. And then and Frankie. And then it's like the next day it's like, holy crap, we're at a whole new level again. So it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think as well, one of the challenges that we've found is, at least in our experience, is that the general narrative of parenting hasn't been that positive. And again, everyone's got their own filter. Maybe the lens in which you see it and the people that you're surrounded by, maybe it's a different story. But that our experience was that it wasn't that positive, and that I was always excited to have kids with you and to raise a family. But I wasn't sure if it was just going to become this prison and make life, we were living such a good life. The best, the last 5 years with you have been the best 5 years of my life by so far. It's ridiculous. And to be mindful that we were going to give that up, or at least that was our thought process, that we'd have to give it up in order to raise a child. There was a part of me that was wondering, what the outcome of that was going to be. And, our experience couldn't be further from the main narrative in terms of the negative. Like, Shani's the most positive person I've ever met. So naturally there's a positive shine on everything. But, people kind of ask us what's the worst part or the hardest part of parenting. And I don't want to be dismissive of other people's experience, but I struggle to find a bad or a hard part, at this stage. I think, if there's the hardest part for me is probably the daily back and forth of, am I doing enough as a provider, and am I doing enough in terms of my presence with her, and just the dance between wanting to work and create a family for my girls and then also wanting to be there. you know, in terms of that time and time you can never get back. And I think that's, for me, at this stage, the hardest part of always navigating that. But I like, you know, I'm sure we'll have our moments that are the more challenging than other moments, but I couldn't speak highly enough of parenting at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, this is our experience. Like, I know that
Totally.
people have had super traumatic births and traumatic postpartums, and it's like we're not downplaying that at all. Like, that exists, but our experience has been this, you know, and we're so grateful that it has been our experience. And, you know, I think subconsciously we both put off having kids for a while because we thought that it's going to take away so much from life. It's going to take away from our business, and it's going to do this and that. But really, it's inspired a new level of love for us. It's inspired greater growth for us. Like, we're both like, holy crap, we just want to do the best and be the best, like, for her, for us as a family. And it's just like expanded our love like tenfold. So yeah, I think if I had known it would be this way, like, I wonder if we would have looked to have kids earlier. Don't know.
Well, I think the other thing is I've at least shifted from being adamant that 2 kids is enough to really strongly feeling called
We've
to
struck 3 in there, guys. There's a third.
Really feeling called to a third kid. So I don't want to kind of count chickens before they've hatched, but, you know, the nature of just what it's brought to our lives. And I think also the way in which we've grounded ourselves through that process. You know, I often think about my life in 3 really distinct eras: pre-Byron, Byron, and now Frankie. And if I think about my pre-Byron era, my life was so fucking chaotic that the thought of bringing a kid into it just made me so more dysregulated than I already was. And I know I was never in the right relationship, but I used to always think to myself, you know, how am I going to bring a kid in, and are they going to 10x this chaos that I've already got? And they probably would have. But since moving to Byron and really working on myself, grounding myself, my environment, and then now seeing the way in which we've been able to ground ourselves through the first 12 weeks of Frankie, it gives me a lot more confidence in knowing, yep, cool. You know, and I know with 2 comes more challenges, as does with 3. But I have a lot more confidence that we'd be able to navigate that with all the kind of moving parts of a family with 3, you know, a lot more than I used to feel confident in.
I love that third is just snuck in there.
I know.
So good.
I know.
What do you think has been the funniest moment with Frankie so far?
You've got one that comes to mind, I'm guessing.
No, well, I'm just thinking, I'm like, obviously all the poo explosions and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes she does, like, you're like, how on earth did that come out of you? And it will be in the car or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, last Friday was a good one.
That was such a good one.
We're going to catch up with a couple of friends for a drink. And I was like, babe, there's a strong smell coming. And ended up being that she'd absolutely hit a new PB on the poo explosion as we're going to dinner.
And like, they're not like the cute newborn watery ones anymore. They're like, they've got a smell to them now.
Strong.
Like they're,
Yeah.
And we couldn't find a bin anywhere, could we? So
no. So we chucked it in the back. And then our friends decided they want a lift as well. So I was extremely embarrassed when they got in the car. And
it smells like shit.
And the car smelled like shit. But
oh, man.
Yeah, it just, everything hits different. Everything. And, you know, a few boys have kind of asked me how I'm going, and, you know, I spoke about kind of just the richness that it brings life, but it's also this weird dance of a deep presence to the minute things of her and of the home life, but also, you know, I found myself at times maybe lacking presence because I'm thinking more about the future of us than ever before. So, you know, the general nature of a newborn can mean that you're struggling for presence because there's so many moving parts and you're reorientating yourself. And it almost feels like this juxtaposition for me of like the deepest of presence in one sense, and then at times like a lack of presence because I'm still finding my feet, and all of a sudden there's more pressure on me as a father to produce. But I think that, you know, she calls a deeper level of presence, and you naturally do anyway. You know, that's always been, not by anything you do, just by your overall being. You call a higher version of me and a deeper presence, and I can sense when I'm not being present, because you go into naggy mode. I'm like, okay, I've dropped the ball here. I'm either not connected, I'm not leading, or I'm not present, and then we reorientate. But she finds a way to call a deeper level of presence. And, you know, I remember parents saying to us that you'd notice the difference between a laugh, between a certain cry for sleep. And I'm like, a cry's a cry. But like, fuck, you definitely notice the difference in terms of any cries or any noises and what they might mean. And just this incredible connection to your intuition, which you naturally are excellent at, and we've continued to use that as a guide and a compass for what she needs and where to next.
Can you talk to the journey that you've been on, like stepping in more into the provider role? Because I think it's something that a lot of men go through, but I don't know if it's often spoken about as much. Can you talk us through like what happened for you?
Well, firstly, which I haven't spoken to much, but pre-Frankie coming, and maybe Shani can speak to how it looked from the outside, because it was pretty gnarly. March was, up until about halfway through March, it was tracking to be the quietest month that I've had in the last 5 years. And this was happening 3 weeks before Frankie was born, and I was flipping.
And we had a wedding that we were planning.
And we had a wedding that we were planning. And I just remember the pressure being just too much. And I just kind of went almost mute for like 2 weeks, I think I remember. And it can be really hard to know how to support a husband or a partner. And I get this question a fair bit from women. And it's that dance between stepping in and making sure that they feel supported, but also stepping back and just allowing them to organise themselves. And sometimes that might look like it's an avoidant tendency, but for me, it was just processing what I needed to process and just finding my way out. And you were always good at going, you've got this, and if you want support, I'm here. And for me, that always felt like enough, because I knew, and I also appreciated the confidence in you've got this, and I think that language is as good as it gets. So, yeah, naturally, you just take on more pressure. And I think a lot of blokes don't speak to it for a number of reasons, and potentially for some good reasons as well, in that they are happy to carry the weight of the family on their shoulders. And also they don't want to burden their partner with financial stress or whatever it might be. And that was a lot to carry, but I just also had to find my way out of it. And the nature of my work means that things can turn around really quickly. And after, do you reckon I was carrying it for about 2 weeks? It was probably the worst I've been in our 4 years together.
Oh my God. And it was like heartbreaking, because I would see how much you're breaking, and I'm like, he's got to go through this. Like, this is the portal that he has to go through. And it was like, I wish I could do something for you, but I couldn't. I just knew that you had to find your way out of this. I don't know if you remember the exact timing, but it was like the day that I finished my the day I went on baby vacay, maternity leave. Then I think it was either that day or the next day you had your highest day ever or something. It was like you had 2 clients sign up in the day, and then it was like we went from being the lowest month to like it was crazy, like the timing of it.
It was, again, the nature of my work means that things can turn around really quickly. So I went from knowing that Shani was about to finish up work, knowing that Frankie was 3 weeks away or something like that, and looking at my month that was tracking and it being the lowest month at that point in the 5 years that I've been in the coaching space. And then in the space of 72 hours, I remember it being a Friday, and I had a couple of clients come in, and then a new one on the Monday. So I'd gone from what was going to be the quietest month in 5 years to being able to kind of have us covered for essentially your first kind of 12 weeks. But I think just the natural burden of being the provider, and maybe not the best choice of words, but it is a burden that we carry. But also like I don't think I like the word burden. The privilege that we carry of protector, provider, and the weight that we carry. And for me, it's something that I think about every day. And it's stress that I carry, and I'm not kind of unique in this. Just about every bloke does. And you just like, but also at the same time, for me, I've never been more motivated. You know, not that I feel like motivation is probably one of my kind of fortunate traits in terms of I'm quite easily motivated, but it just it hits differently when you've got a child to provide for, and it hits differently when you want to provide your family with a certain life and a certain lifestyle, and to see, you know, for those that to give you a visual of our house, there's a separate office and a separate study that I work at, and it's all kind of glass pane, and then I can see into the main house where Shani's often hanging. And that role of a provider just hits differently when you're working away in your office. You see, well, I see Shani and my daughter playing together in the other room, and just knowing that I can provide for Shani in a way that allows her to do that and not have to stress, and just see her in her most magical domain, is all the motivation a bloke would ever need, I reckon. So, you know, yes, it's a lot to carry, but it's also like an honor to be able to carry that and to allow your daughter and your partner to be stress-free and just connect and not have a war in the world at the same time.
And it's been like so nice. And I've said this like so many times too. I don't think there's ever enough that I can say it, but just like to have your support and to have you provide for us while we're in this season, like has allowed me to just surrender into it and just be able to be there for Frankie. Like, God, my heart breaks. Like, you know, Frankie, we've obviously got amazing D looking after Frankie today, but like I couldn't imagine having to send Frankie into daycare, like, you know, 3 months in, or even earlier, whatever it might be. Like I'm so grateful for you to provide for our family that allows me to actually choose if I want to go back to work and choose to spend every day with Frankie. And like, we just have so much fun together. And it's like, you know, not a day goes by when I'm sitting in a cafe and like, you know, Frankie and I are giggling away and laughing away, you know, and sipping cacao, that I'm like, I'm so grateful that you've allowed us to have this. And like, these are the moments, she might not remember them, but this is building like her foundational imprints of who she is and who she's going to be. And it's like, it's so pivotal. And I'm so grateful that we get to have this time together. It's the best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say something that, that lands, and you say it so often, and I really encourage, like, if you want to say something that hits differently to a guy, every time you say,
can you say it?
every time you say thank you for providing for our family, it just hits, you know, like, and you don't need to do anything. You, like, just every time you say that, it's like, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. And like, we mean it so much, like to literally not have to stress or worry. And I know you carry so much that I don't even see, just allows me to just fully drop in with Frankie and not have to worry about that or stress about that. and like it might not be like this forever, but it's like I'm loving that I can just fully be with her in this season and show up for her and not have to carry, I know you said burdens, but not have to carry the responsibilities of having that on my shoulders. And I think that's been a big dance for us of like, you know, we both were working, we both were running businesses and we both were doing this. And like to allow you to step fully into your provider role, like I needed to surrender, and I needed to, surrender's probably a passive word, but I needed to kind of, you know, quote unquote, drop the sword and be like, Blake's got us. Like I need to just fully trust that he's got our family. And that was a scary moment for me because I've always been, you know, the one who's like out there making money and doing this and building my business. But like that was a huge shift just to be like, you have fully got us. And like my role right now and my time is dedicated to Frankie, and that's where I want to be. And that's going to be the best thing for our family right now.
And so I think the you know, I can't speak to everyone's upbringing, but I think ultimately, not from a place of entitlement or lack of awareness, but ultimately I'd love for Frankie to just never know the burden that I carry. You know, yes, she can be grateful for the work that I do, but I ultimately would love for her just to be blissfully ignorant to the fact that she gets to be in her own world, doing her own thing, and I take the bullets of life. You know, I think it's unfair for kids to experience the burden of the men because they come home and they're angry or they're stressed, or kids have got to walk around on eggshells. I ultimately would love that every arrow, every bullet, every issue just hit me on the back, and she gets to remain in her peaceful, playful state of being and never see what I carry, and not from a place of avoidance, but a place from me constantly doing the work and constantly healing, so that there's no ramifications for the weight that I carry. And that's that would be my ultimate, for her to see this joyful version of me, because I do constantly do the work to lighten. Whereas I think a lot of fathers unfortunately carry the burden, but they don't know how to process it. And for that reason, it infiltrates into their homes. The kids are walking on eggshells. The husband's not present. You know, he's got short temper, all of those things. It's like, cool, you're carrying the burden, but it's also spilling out onto your family now. So yes, you're carrying it, but you're not actually carrying, you know, with all due respect, you're actually not carrying it that well because it's spilling out. So, you know, there's a big part of me to carry the weight, but more importantly, for her not to experience the weight that I carry, or, you know, and obviously I've done a lot of work, or to be influenced by the weight that I've carried from my family. Yeah. And up until this point, that's looked like a lot of work, but I don't want her to see any residue of my upbringing that is then passed on to her. And time will tell what work is still required for me to do. But I'm happy and I'm proud of the environment that we've set up, that at this stage all looks good for her and she gets to flourish in the best possible home environment.
And it's been so beautiful to see, like, hold on, I'll start with the quote first. Like, there was this quote in this book, and it's like, what a man didn't get growing up, he will try and create for his family. And it's like, it's been so beautiful to witness you doing this for your family. It's like what you didn't get growing up for whatever reason, I can see you intentionally trying to create for Frankie, for our family, for our home. And like, it literally just warms my heart because I see your brain ticking over, and like I see the intention and the effort that you're doing in like creating a very grounded home environment, and like coming home with a smile, and, you know, just creating such a safe space for her to be in. And and like I know that that wasn't always the case for you growing up, and it's like that's why you're doubling down on that as an intention for Frankie, just so she doesn't have to go through what you went through.
That's It can be hard to know the balance between healthy exposure as well. Sometimes, like, I'm mindful that the lack of safety and the lack of love that I felt, what is, and it might sound strange, but what's the healthy expression of that within our family without over coddling her, or, you know, that's kind of another thought that I have often. And this kind of showed up in week one, you know, like, as part of my upbringing, I was very jumpy, and home was the least safe place that I've ever felt. And I hope no kid ever has to go through that again. But the trauma of that, if that's the right word, meant that I was probably overprotecting her in the first week with her startle reflex. I didn't know what the fuck a startle reflex was until we brought our daughter home. But, you know, there'd be a noise and I'd see her jump, and that for me looked really unsafe. You know, I'm seeing her kind of jump at noises, and I know that feeling. I know that hypervigilance. I know that feeling. And then you had to educate me on, like, no, this is part of her development. So, you know, that's one of those occasions where me not wanting to repeat or replicate my upbringing, I'd probably swung it too far the other way in terms of, you know, trying to kind of walk around quietly. And the irony is I was trying to walk around on eggshells so that I didn't activate her startle reflex in the same way that I used to walk around on eggshells in my own home. So I had to be kind of corrected on, actually, this is important as part of her own kind of development. So,
and then now a door will slam and she will not even
bat
an eyelid. She'll be fast asleep.
Yeah.
You know, we'll drop a pan or bang, crash, whatever, and she's just like peaceful. And we're both jumping and startled, and she's just like, just so chill.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is funny, that repatterning of the startle reflex, especially to be like, oh no, it's meant to happen, and it's meant to happen often. And then so then they can build safety in their environment. And you'll see, like, you know, even if she'll startle at one thing, if you do that same sound again, it's a bit less, same sound again, and then she doesn't do it at all, because she knows that if that sound happens, I'm safe. And that's literally what the startle reflex is doing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
It's been an hour, but what's one thing that you would, what's one like thought or tip or insight that you would give to potential parents coming through?
I think trust your intuition. And I know that isn't really concrete, but it's like every baby is so different. And, you know, you're told that you've got to feed every 3 hours and you've got to get them to sleep every whatever hours. And it's like, you know, we've never followed a schedule. Frankie sleeps when she wants to sleep. She'll feed when she wants to feed. Like we've fed on demand the whole time. And like, I'm so glad that we've learnt on our intuition as a compass through this, you know, pregnancy and postpartum journey and parenting journey, because it's allowed us to be Frankie led rather than schedule led or, you know, whatever led. And you can see a big difference in that. So I think, like, if something doesn't feel right as a parent, it probably isn't. If you've got a weird inkling, like sometimes she'll be crying and we're like, oh, I think it's the hat, and you take the hat off and she stops crying, or, you know, little things like that. Like, the more you follow your intuition, the more you actually build the confidence in your intuition, and the more you see, fuck, this is the best asset I can have as a parent, is just like knowing that our child is always communicating with us. But, you know, when we're so strictly following a schedule or a process or a rule book, you're actually bypassing what the child's trying to tell you. So I think if you have that as a foundation, like, you're already off on such a great start.
Yeah, I like that.
What's your one?
I think if you're in a position, ideally as a business owner or whatever, I would move mountains in order to create life on your terms, so that you, as a protector and provider, can also provide in so many other ways in terms of presence and time with your kids. And like, don't wait until your kid comes. Like, start that process now and start thinking about it. You know, I think we were probably talking about it 18 months before she even came. And even since she's been here, there's been a number of changes, and there will continue to be a number of changes. But I'm stoked that I'm in a fortunate position, but it's not by luck that I'm in this fortunate position. It's been crafted over an 18-month period. And, I would do whatever I could, and I highly suggest that for anyone listening, do whatever you can to create a life on your terms so that you can be there in a way, and in a world where there's a lot of outsourcing of parenting to institutions, etc. Like, live life on your terms so that you can be the best parent for your kids, because they need you, and they will continue to need you. And it's an honour to be able to shape our daughter in the way that we are. And in order to do that, you need to be able to kind of spend time with them and put in the reps. And that's something that we've created and will continue to craft over the years to come.
I love it. Life by design, baby.
Life by design. Peace.
Do you want to finish on a favourite Frankie moment?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. I think, like, sometimes I literally just sit there and we kind of like communicate back and forth. Like, she'll make a sound, then I make a sound, and then she'll make a sound and I make a sound. And I'm literally there sobbing, crying, and she'll start to have tears in her eyes, like happy tears. But it's like, even though we can't communicate, we're communicating. And I know that one day these will become words, and then one day these become sentences. And it's just like, I'm literally sitting there just sobbing, being like, this is the most beautiful thing ever. But it's just like, yeah, it's like the most simple thing, but I just love her so much. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think I kind of said it before, but it's like time stands still when I see you guys connecting. Yeah. And, I didn't know if I'd ever find my person. I didn't know if I'd ever have my own kids. At one point, I didn't even know if I'd be here. And, at that time when you're on your deathbed and you wonder if life is worth it, and you're putting all your energy into blind faith and blind hope, not sure how you're going to get out of what you've created, or not sure how you're going to turn your life around. And then you get to this place where it's beyond anything that you could imagine, and you can just sit back in awe of your partner and your daughter, and they're playing and they're in their own bubble, and the rest of the world goes on, but they're in their bubble, is something that I could just watch for days and weeks on end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my favourite Frankie moment is you guys, and just watching that evolve.
I feel like there's just been so many moments where I'm like, I just want to bottle this moment. I want to bottle this moment. And it's just like, I feel like we have them every day, Yeah. It's just been so beautiful.
Yeah.
Lots of tears.
Well, geez, it's been a big morning, guys.
It's been a big morning.
We didn't get to any questions. We'll have to do another recording.
Episode.
Peace.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye.